Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I will be making Angel Dust Key from Hazbin Hotel. Since there is more detail to this key, the first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of parchment paper and start tracing it with a pen. This little technique will allow me to trace the entire image of what I've designed and then later take the image on the parchment paper onto the clay. The clay that I'll be using is oven baked clay. The first thing we have to do is take a butter knife and cut only a small amount of the clay so we can use for our build. Once I have the amount of clay that I need, I start by tearing it apart and then start rolling it up into a ball. Once the clay is finally into a ball, I now take the roller and start flattening out the ball of clay to get it nice and flat. As I roll this, I made sure not to put too much pressure onto the clay. I really don't want this to be a very thin piece of clay. I wanted to make it enough where there's a good thickness. Until after a minute or two, the clay will be looking like this. The next step, we take our scissors and start by cutting out the image from our parchment paper. Reason for this is that the image that we're going to cut out will be on top of the clay for us to use. After the image is finally cut out, we can now place the image on top of the clay on the flat surface. The next step that I'll be using will be something I've never actually tried before, by using large skewers for the build. To how I'm going to use the skewer in this build, I'm basically going to take one of the skewer and start measuring how long the piece will be on the length of how long the key is going to be. After the length is done, I will be starting by taking my box cutter and start cutting it right down the middle. After cutting the skewer in half and double checking the length to make sure that it is the right length for the key, I now start by taking the piece of clay and start flipping over to its side. As you can see, there are two holes, one at the top, one at the bottom. This tells me how long the key, that is the length of the key, will be, and it gives me as a guide to make sure that the key of where it's going to be placed will be in the right spot. I then now take my finger and start putting pressure on the skewer to be pushed inside of the clay. The reason for this is that the skewer will be used as a core, so that way the key can have a nice core strength inside. Once the skewer is placed inside of the clay in the part of the clay where I needed it to be, I now take just a simple piece of clay to be put on top of the skewer, so that way it can be covered up. After covering up the skewer, I now flip it back to its right side, with the image still in the same spot. The next step is by taking my knife set and choose one of the blades for this. Once I choose my blade, I'll put it on the handle and start by cutting all the extra clay around the key. After all the extra clay is finally removed, the key will be looking like this. The next step is by taking a random nickel that will be placed on top of the key. The first thing we have to do is by taking our paper image off the key, so that way we can take the nickel and place it on the top center of the key. I start by taking my thumb and start putting pressure on it so it can be in a circle shaped form. I put a little bit more pressure onto the nickel, and then after a short while I'll take my tool to reveal the inner circle. I now take my set of carving tools. The reason for this is that I have to take the rest of any extra clay that could be around the key before going to the next step. After making sure the key is clean, I now put it on top of the tray and place it inside the oven, where I preheat the oven to 250 and place a timer for 15 minutes. I also checked it every couple of minutes to make sure that the inner core, which is the skewer, isn't burning or smoking or ruining the key. After 15 minutes were up, the key is finally done and the key came out perfect. The next step, I take my blade and start by taking any small extra materials off from the key to get it nice and smooth. After the carving is done, I now take a small piece of clay and start making it into a circle, which will be the spider web that will be in the very center of the key in 3D form. After the clay is now flat, I now take the design from the key design and start by putting it into shape, and there was a lot of details that was going into this spider web. So it took me a little bit of time to get all the details in. I was really happy that the small heart in the very center of the spiderweb was able to come out, and I was able to place the spiderweb gently and carefully on the very center of the inner circle on the key. I now take the tool, the carving tool, and start by adding the rest of the details on the key. And with this particular type of method, I had to put it in the oven at least 2 more times with a time of 5 minutes each. After putting the rest of the details on the key, it came out perfectly the way I wanted it to be. The next thing we have to do is start painting it white. The problem was I ran out of regular white paint, so I improvised by getting myself some white spray paint. It has been almost 8 years since I last used spray paint. But luckily enough, I was able to remember to shake it up for a minute and then start painting it very carefully from a short distance. And after one side was dry, I did the other side. Once the white spray paint was done, I can now go to the next step by taking all of the colors from Angel Dust's color scheme. So the first one we're going to do is light pink. This part of the key will have a stripe pattern following the colors of light pink and white. The next color will be red following 3 dots. Next color will be black for the 2 parts down by the key and around the spider web. Once I was done using the black paint for this part, around the spider web are very small areas, so I decided to use a toothpick with very small amount of black paint to paint around the spider web. After finishing the rest with the black paint and going over the minor details that are left, I went back to the spider web and painted dark pink. In the final step, I will be using clear nail polish for the key. I will be also using the technique of using 2 coats for the key so it can be protected. And after I finish using 2 coats for the key, the Angel Dust key from Hazbin Hotel is finally complete. Thank you for watching. Be sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my videos, leave a like, and also leave a comment down below to see what else you want me to make.